MAGA Republican Congressman Mike Flood from Nebraska just got a rude awakening at his town hall. He's one of the few MAGA Republicans who are still holding town halls, and the people of Nebraska were not buying what he was selling. They wanted to know, why was he complicit in covering up the Epstein files with Donald Trump? Here, play this clip.
Passed a law to release the Epstein files. We have passed a law to release the Epstein files. My second question is, do you think that under President Joe Biden's 4 years in the White House, if President Trump was in the Epstein files...
And they also wanted to know how he can support someone like Donald Trump with so low or no morals at all. Watch as Mike Flood tries to respond. Play this clip.
Morals let you fall into like with Trump.
Say that question again.
It says, how can your morals let you fall into like with Trump?
I'll be the first to know. We had an election in 2024. One half of the country went for Donald Trump. One half of the country went for Joe Biden. I realize that a lot of people, and some in this room, do not. Donald Trump could say the sky is blue, and you would argue with him. I totally get that some people don't support him. And does every single Republican support Donald Trump on every single issue? No. But we are moving the country forward. We are unleashing energy, independence. We are working to bring down taxes. No taxes on tips. No taxes on Social Security. No taxes on overtime. We are getting rid of the estate tax on selling the farm. There are so many good things that have happened in the last 2 years that I understand not everybody agrees, but I'm just telling you, as a member of Congress, you have to look at the results. And
then there was just more booing as Mike Flood, this MAGA Republican Congressman from Nebraska, was sputtering out of control. Play this clip.
Safer, work to get housing priorities and affordability, work to protect research funding. There's been a lot of very good things that have happened. And so I get that you may not like Donald Trump, but he is the president of the United States, and he puts the working class before almost everything else he does. He's focused on that. Very good.
Let me share with you more of that question on Epstein that Mike Flood was like, well, of course I support the Epstein Transparency Act, but Biden this, Biden that. And the crowd was like, stop with the Biden stuff. We know that Donald Trump and you are complicit in covering up this child sex trafficking ring by not releasing the Epstein files. Here, play this clip.
Line right here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Kim Stabby from Fremont. I know you're a lawyer. You've taken an oath. You've taken an oath as a congressman to support the laws of this land. Epstein files, million files have still not been released. And the act, the Epstein Transparency Act, you signed, Senate signed, Trump signed, yet we still have millions of files that still have not been released. We know that Trump is in them tons of times. Why do you continue to protect the pedophiles and Trump's DOJ as they continue to break the law? They were all supposed to be released on December 19th. And so what are you going to do to start those poor victims? You didn't go to the hearing they had. The victims spoke. You know GOP showed up. They spoke. They have been waiting over 30 years for this government to have accountability.
Thank you for your question. I would tell you, I was presiding over the House of Representatives today, the day that bill was presented to the House. I not only voted for the bill, I declared the bill had passed. It was later sent to the Senate that evening, and it was approved on unanimous consent by the U.S. Senate. It was signed by the President. We have passed a law to release the Epstein files. We have passed a law to release the Epstein files. My second question is, do you think that under President Joe Biden's 4 years in the White House, if President Trump was in the Epstein files, it would have been released? All right. Next question. Next.
There were lots of questions from this audience in Nebraska as well about Donald Trump's $1.776 billion slush fund for the January 6th insurrectionists. Listen to this question right here. Let's play this clip.
My name is Michelle Moser. I'm from Norfolk, Nebraska. I'm a retired attorney with the IRS Estate and Gift Tax Division, and I asked you the Doge question in Columbus. So my question today is, Trump sued the IRS for $10 billion. The IRS Chief Counsel's Office prepared a memo in defense of the Internal Revenue Service, which was suppressed. One of the items brought up in that memo was the statute of limitation had expired, which indeed it has. Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, settled that case for $1.776 billion with an anti-weaponization fund, which allows all those people on January 6th who broke into the Capitol to benefit from that fund. It also gives the president the right to go after that money. Last year you talked about fiscal conservatism. How is that fiscally conservative?
Well, first of all, thanks for being here, Michelle, and thank you for your career with the IRS. I know the kind of work you did, and I know one of the firms you started in, and you are super capable and highly respected. What I would say to your question about this fund that came to light last week from the Department of Justice is that I have never approved that. I do not think one penny of any fund should ever go to any January 6th insurrectionist that was in the Capitol on January 6, 2021. I want to be very clear. I do not think we should be creating a fund for people that commit physical violence against law enforcement. Here's what I would say, as I understand it, and this comes from some of my colleagues in the Senate. The Senate is opening a oversight effort, and we in the House have to determine whether we do the same in the Judiciary Committee or in the Oversight Committee. I clearly think Congress needs to have an oversight role in this before I can sign off or support this. But listen, this is less than a week old, so I am going to be back in Washington on Tuesday. I will say this, though. I do not want $1 of that going to anybody who physically assaulted police officers, period.
Also, there were lots of questions about Donald Trump building himself ballrooms and reflecting pools, and that ultimately this money was coming from the taxpayers. And so lots of people want to know, so you claim to be fiscally conservative, but how are you paying for all of this stuff? Here, play this clip.
The Iran war, the White House ballroom, security for the White House ballroom, immigration enforcement, Trump Arch, returning the pool, the reflecting pool renovation, slush fund for crooks, and the farm bill. How do we pay for all this?
Well, Democrats and Republicans did advance the farm bill. It's sitting over in the Senate, and we are proud to have done it. We got 17 Democrat votes on committee. We came back and we got probably closer to 75 votes from Democrats to pass the farm bill on the House floor. That one is waiting for attention in the Senate. Let's talk about political violence for a second. I was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I was there when the shots rang out. I saw the president, the vice president, and several of his cabinet members get evacuated from there. I walked out of there and I just felt like we are broken as a society. That's the third time. Something like that has happened to him himself. And I can tell you, I look at the state of Minnesota, I look at those state legislators. I was a state legislator for 10 years. They simply opened the door and were gunned down in cold blood. Folks, people that do this don't care about Republicans and Democrats. They're after our entire system. And let me just tell you, if, let's say, God forbid, that bullet in Pennsylvania had been an inch the other way, it not only would have taken the president's life, it would have shattered the confidence that nations have in our system of government, in our elections. So folks, this is bigger than a ballroom. This is something that we as an American people have to make sure that if you want to serve in public office, you don't have to sleep under a bulletproof casing. We have to be in the communities with the people we serve. We cannot hide. I'm trying to figure out what was. The question was there was a lot of things in there, and how do we pay for it? We pay for it by making by making decisions.
No.
So your solution is to tax the rich. You know, and we had this conversation in Columbus. When Joe Biden was president, they had a plan. They would tax the rich. And you can't get anywhere close to solving the problem by simply doing that while at the same time shutting off all growth in the economy. Ask the people of New York that are fleeing. Ask the people that are going to Florida to escape the high taxes. Ask the governor of California why his population is cratering, because they keep ratcheting up the taxes, and the people that have the resources, they zoom out of there. So you leave a bunch of people that don't have the resources to pick up the mess. All right.
There were also some strong questions about the unlawful and catastrophic war in Iran, which MAGA Republican Congressmember Mike Flood would try to respond by saying, but Obama in Libya, Obama this, Obama that. This is their answer for everything. Obama, Biden, they lie about it too. And it's just like, y'all are in charge. If you don't want to be leaders, then get the hell out. Here, I'll play this clip.
About Congress's approval of wars. Where are you stepping in? The Strait of Hormuz was open until he attacked. There was no nuclear bomb there. They obliterated that in June. That's what was reported. And then you guys went back, and now you keep saying that you're going to make a deal to reopen the strait. That was already open. You're making everything unaffordable. We can't afford gas. We can't afford health care. We can't afford things here in Norfolk while you guys are lining your pockets within the presidency, within Congress. What are you guys going to do to regulate this and actually follow laws? What is Congress going to do?
Well, I can tell you that, first of all, we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want them to have a dirty bomb. And I think we all have that shared concern. I will tell you, and I've been researching this, that we had the War Powers Act of 1973. President Obama engaged militarily at a very high level in Libya for the better part of 7 months. He did not get the approval of Congress. We have a situation where you have stopping and starting of fighting. We get regular briefs from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We get that from the Department of War. We get that from White House senior officials. And I can tell you that we have crippled in a major way Iran's capacity to do a lot more harm to us, but we've got to finish the job. When I was getting my hair cut the other day, by the way, my barber's been cutting my hair since I was born. He said it best. He said, now's not the time to cut and run. And I think older Americans that have lived through this time have seen our withdrawal from situations and have not supported it. What happened in Afghanistan was shameful. We need to finish the job with Iran.
Then there were questions from the audience about the Trump regime threatening to invade Greenland and engaging in all this horrific conduct. Here, play this clip.
You seem to have been bit by the Beltway bug. And my question to you is, who do you work for? Are you telling me that the people of the 1st District of Nebraska support seizing Greenland, removing the United States from NATO, placing tariffs on our friends and allies and trading partners, randomly blowing boats out of the water without any clue as to what those people were actually doing? Why didn't we just follow those people to their destination, search them, arrest them, and give them due process?
All right, Warren. Well, first of all, it's good to see you again. I have known Warren Reimer since I was in high school, and he and my folks were some of the only Democrats in Norfolk at the time. So here's what I'll say. My results speak for themselves. I'm bipartisan. I use common sense. I was the first member of the House of Representatives when it came to the issue with Greenland to publicly say in the media that I did not support the U.S. in any way invading or working to take over Greenland. In fact, the Tuesday after that Sunday comment, I specifically had the Danish ambassador in my office, and on June 4th, I will be back to the Danish embassy to spend time with him and to make sure that relationships between the United States and Denmark and Greenland are positive. I'm a member of the Danish caucus. I'm also a member of the Greenland caucus. I just got done passing a bill for housing affordability, and I got 496 votes. That's common sense. Those are results, and that's bipartisan. So I get that you can turn the TV on any day of the week and you can get upset by what you see, but I want to be judged on the things that I do. I want to be judged on the way I conduct myself, and I want to be judged on my bipartisan common sense results.
A question from somebody in the audience about the scapegoating of immigrants that's been used to harm the people in Nebraska, not just harming immigrants, but also harming people in Nebraska who rely on Medicaid. Let's play it.
Address our immigrant community and the false narrative that you're leading that they're illegally getting Medicaid. It's hard for our rural community to access Medicaid services. It is impossible for illegals to get that. Illegals are not voting in our elections. We need to find ways to welcome our immigrant community. Those are our neighbors. Those are people we care about. What are actual ways that you are going to welcome and make them feel like part of our community, since there are so many immigrants in our community?
I have been at like 3 naturalization ceremonies at the Federal District Courthouse in Lincoln. It's a beautiful process. We have to make sure that our process works. We have to make sure that our immigration officers have the staff that they need. I work every day with Afghan refugees and people from Afghanistan that helped us as translators to navigate the USCIS program. And I've toured the agency in Lincoln, and I'm working to get with the folks in Omaha. But I do think at the end of the day, when we have a 50 or $40 trillion debt, you can't be everything to everybody. And if you're not here legally, you can't get free health care.
Next questions are back.
Someone called out the fraud of Doge, to which Mike Flood tried to respond by saying, look, we've cut $2 trillion in spending because of Doge. We saved you $2 trillion. You didn't see, these guys just lie about everything. You didn't save $2 trillion. The deficit is increasing. The debt that is compounding right now under the Trump regime is far more than Biden. You all just lie about everything. Doge didn't get rid of $2 trillion when they don't have the facts on their side, which they never do. They just lie about everything. Here, play this clip.
You vocally supported Doge, run by a non-confirmed ketamine-addled billionaire, to wage war on waste, fraud, and abuse. How much did Doge save the taxpayers? I'll fact check you.
Thank you. Well, in part because of some of Doge.
It's a number.
Well.
How much did you save us?
Well, when we passed the bill on July 4th, we cut $2 trillion out of federal spending in the One Big Beautiful Bill. It was the first time in our nation's history that we cut that much money out of there. And a lot of that happened because Doge identified and pulled back the curtain on a lot of spending that didn't make sense.
And a big issue in Nebraska, as well as lots of other places is, medical marijuana, the access to marijuana. It's legal in Nebraska, and Mike Flood is very much against the legalization of marijuana. And you can watch this exchange right here. Let's play it.
This goes without saying, but I do not want you to die. I do not want you to die. I have had a long-held opinion that medical marijuana is the next step to everybody using marijuana. And when I talk to people on the East and West Coast, they tell me it's the worst thing they've ever seen happen in their home state. I do have a caveat, though. We had a vote on that. The people decided to do it. That is the law in Nebraska, and it has to be followed. You can't. Well, I'm on the federal level. I'm not on the state level anymore. But no, they might not be. Well, here's the deal. I disagree with the issue, but the voters voted, and they voted to approve it. I just hope someday we see the right thing and maybe reverse course. I have met a lot of people that have moved into this district from states like Colorado because their schools, their communities, their police, they are hurting in places that have expanded marijuana use. Okay. Next question.
And then one of his constituents got particularly mad about Mike Flood lying about this as well. Let's play this clip.
I just wanted to, I'm not going to let you lie to these people, okay? Cannabis is not going to kill you. Cannabis is not going to kill your kids. There's actual proof that senior use of cannabis skyrocketed when it's legal and child use down. I'm sorry, stop lying to these people. It's not going to kill your kids. It's medicine. They're turning it into medicine, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I guess my question is, why are you lying to these people?
Weed is not medicine. Weed is not medicine. We will regret that vote. We will regret that decision. This is not going to be good for children and generations of children. But it is the law, so it should be enforced.
Now I want to bring in Iowa State Representative Lindsey James, running for a very important congressional seat, Iowa's 2nd congressional district. For those who have been following our Iowa politics here, that was the seat previously held by Ashley Hinson, who would get booed at all of those town halls when she would say how great the big, beautiful, disastrous bill was and how amazing people's lives are in Iowa. So this is now an open seat. Iowa State Representative Lindsey James is running against a MAGA candidate named Joe Mitchell. Fun fact against Joe Mitchell, it's a guy who went to Mar-a-Lago, dropped $75,000 partying at Mar-a-Lago while the people of Iowa were suffering as a result of policies that he wants to continue, as a result of Hinson's policies, as a result of all these MAGA policies and the fraud that was sold, that things were just going to get so much better. It's great to have you, State Representative Lindsey James. Let's talk about this race. Let's talk about the dynamic in Iowa. We've been giving Iowa a lot of it well-deserved attention because really starting in early 2025, we saw major state and local seats that were flipping, and people said there was something happening in Iowa, which was really a bellwether to what we've seen heading into the midterm. So talk about Iowa in general. Then let's get into you. Let's get into your race. Let's talk about it all. But let's talk about Iowa. Something's changing in Iowa, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And Ben, it's a real honor to be with you. So thank you for having me on. There is something undeniable happening on the ground here in Iowa. Folks are thinking different about how they're voting and their politics because folks are making impossible choices because of their financial realities, which are a direct result of these harmful policies that we're seeing come from Washington, D.C. So we've got a real shot to flip this state. A number of seats are targeted this cycle. It is heating up.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about you, your background being an Iowa state representative, before that, ordained Presbyterian pastor, chaplain at Dubuque. Talk to us about your background.
Yeah, so I'm a mom, first and foremost. I am white knuckling parenting teenagers. So if anyone has any advice for me, I've got 2 great kids, but I'm also an ordained Presbyterian pastor and spent the bulk of my career as a college chaplain before going into the Iowa legislature, where I've served Iowans for the last 8 years.
So you know Joe Mitchell from your political experience. You know the person you're running against. And he kind of fits the bill of who Trump wants as his proxies to do his bidding. I'm giving you my take on it. You can push back. He seems like one of these born with a golden spoon in their mouth, yes, right out of the Trump playbook, Mar-a-Lago partying, selfies in the Golden Ballroom, and views politics as access to Trump and the Mar-a-Lago world, which doesn't seem to be what the Iowa people want right now.
No, I don't believe that Joe Mitchell has ever had to make an impossible choice because of his financial realities. He was born into extraordinary wealth and is quite out of touch with what Iowans are actually facing. I don't think he's ever had to worry about his next paycheck, worrying about putting food on the table, worrying about whether he can afford groceries or gasoline. He's never lived a day in Iowa's 2nd congressional district. So I think he believes that he can just move into the district and buy this seat and push Trump policies. Meanwhile, those very policies are forcing families to make impossible choices like, do I, pay for my rent or pay for my insulin medication? And no one should have to make these impossible choices in the wealthiest country in the world.
We've been following the Iowa Senate race. We've been following the Iowa governor's race. We've been following Iowa state Senate races, state house races. And as I mentioned at the outset, from the very beginning, we've been seeing, interesting trends. But I guess beyond the trends, there are people. There are people in Iowa who we should always remember these policies that promised we're going to make you richer than ever. Things are going to become more affordable. You're never going to have better health care than we're going to give you. You can keep on saying that over and over again, and you could perhaps drag the scheme out a little, but at some point, the bill comes due and people are like, okay, well, where's the health care and where's this and where's the things getting more affordable and where's, making good on your promise that you were going to end these, constant wars and where's all of this happening? And so when you're traveling around Iowa, when you're traveling around your district, are you hearing a lot from also kind of people that would surprise you, former Trump voters or lots of, independent voters that from someone like you who's been in Iowa politics now for a long time that you're saying, wow, this is really different, what I'm hearing from people?
Yeah, the first sign of this undeniable shift was actually traveling through Iowa's 2nd congressional district in the rural part of this district where there used to be large barn signs for Donald Trump. Those are now gone. Those are no longer being displayed. That was the first sign. The second sign that we saw with the undeniable shift was the fact that we were holding a number of events across the district to have conversations with everyday Iowans and working families across the state. And people who weren't just Democrats were showing up to these events. So independents and even Republicans at these stops. And so folks are really thinking differently about who they're voting for. Iowans are exhausted by politics. I mean, we all are, right? And they're looking for someone who has deeply held moral convictions, someone who will lead from that place as opposed to what's politically advantageous, which is all that we've seen coming from Ashley Hinson and all that we will see coming from Joe Mitchell.
I think it's a great point in general. And I don't think it's the exhaustion of politics. I think it's enhanced, but I also think that's one of the things that probably brought us, with Trump, that people were exhausted. They hate politics. And so someone comes along and says, you know what? I'm just going to destroy it all and then I'll make it better. But I've got to destroy it because we're all exhausted. Let me just punch it and break it. Like, yeah, let's freaking break it. Okay, but now you're going to rebuild it, right? No. We're just going to break it more. What? You're just going to break it worse than it was, and you're going to break it in a way that it doesn't even function. And rather than improve it, you just brought it back to the worst situation. And then people go, wait a minute. I know why we had that government agency, because it was actually helping to regulate pollution that was causing cancer. Wait a minute. I remember why we had this thing that monitored insider trading, because we don't want the president doing 3,800 stock trades off of companies that he's dealing with while I'm getting screwed. I know why and so people then start to go, I now understand why, yes, there's exhaustion. And yes, the bureaucracies of politics and all of this can sometimes seem slow and sluggish and frustrating. But maybe we should be focused on how to improve the system and make it better than just totally annihilating it and making it far worse. I think that's the macro moment that we're in. But, tell me what you think.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's not just exhausted by politics, it's that partisanship. And it's longing for leaders who have courage of conviction to do what's right by our neighbors. And one of the things that I talk a lot about is the fact that I think about policy as a person of faith. I've been deeply shaped by the parable of the Good Samaritan. When the powerful people see someone hurting on the side of the road and they walk the other way, it takes the Good Samaritan to really, reach out, pick up that person who's harmed. But what I love even more about this story is that what Martin Luther King Jr. did with it. He said, it's not just our moral responsibility to pick up the person who's hurting and harmed on the side of the road. It's our moral responsibility to fix the road, because what King knew about that road is it was a notorious place of violence. And so what King was calling us to is, the compassion of helping hurting folks, but also the systemic issues that caused the harm in the first place. And that's where I get really fired up about calling folks out in Washington, D.C. for all of the harmful policies that are coming through.
Lindsey, where can people learn more about the campaign, and any final thing you want to say to our nearly 7 million subscribers here?
Yeah, absolutely. Folks in Iowa are making impossible choices because of their financial realities. It's the mom who's, do I pay my utility bill or do I buy my kid a winter coat? It's the family. Do I pay my rent or put food on the table? No one should have to make these kinds of impossible choices in the wealthiest country in the world. Folks here in Iowa are feeling the pinch. And we're going to do everything we can to flip this seat and take back the U.S. House.
Iowa State Representative Lindsey James. One more time, where can people learn more about you again?
Oh, find Lindsey for Iowa, LINDSAY for Iowa. And you can find me on all the social media.
Iowa State Representative Lindsey James, running for Iowa 2nd. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ben.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.